Welcome back, YouTube. This is part 2 of my Camaro 3800 head gasket rebuild. Well, I would say rather intermission. I wanted to take the time to kind of explain a few things, but we could call it part 2. But each one of these parts that you see here on the thing kind of has its own little adventure or misadventure as I was going through rebuilding, putting the head gasket back together. Had everything put back together. I was ready to do the initial startup. And of course, when I started it and turned the key, nothing happened. It didn't start up. And it sounded like to me that maybe like the engine was, I don't know, constrained or like it was straining, like, almost like the starter motor was seasoned in there or something like that. So I started to go down that road. And I took the starter motor out to go get it tested at Advanced Auto or AutoZone, one of those places. And the guy tested it and he says, "Oh, your starter is bad." So I said, "Okay," I'm thinking I'll just buy another starter. But then I said, "You know what, let me go get a second opinion." And I go across the street and the guy says, "Oh no, this starter is just fine." I'm like, "Oh man, here we go." So I wound up just getting another starter anyway and putting the starter in. That's the heat shield and all that stuff. Put the starter in, cross the fingers, turn the key, and guess what? Same thing happened. So I'm like, man, what could it be? What could it be? So I'm chasing that around for a little while. And I noticed that anybody with the Camaro, you recognize these fuel lines here. The fuel was kind of dripping out, running out of the end of these fuel lines. And I noticed, or I remembered that if you look on the inside, they got them clips on the inside in there. When I was taking it apart and I put it back together, the clips fell out kind of weird. And I thought I put them back in there right, like it would click into place, but I guess it wasn't, liquid tight or whatever, but it was leaking from there. So I was thinking about getting more clips to replace it in there or just order a new one of these. And that's what I wound up doing. Just ordering another one with the clips already in there the way that they should be. Plugged it up. And of course, everything was okay. Turn the key. Still don't start. I'm like, okay, so what could it be? What could it be? I'm looking around. I say, well, let me test the spark because I'm thinking that maybe the ignition module had blew or something, or maybe, something with ignition. So I get my spark tester, test out, see if I got spark. Sure, I got spark. Oh man, okay. So I get my fuel gauge. I say, well, okay, maybe let me see if it got fuel pressure or whatever. I see fuel leaking, but let me see if I got fuel pressure. So hook up the fuel pressure gauge. It got fuel pressure. It was a little low than what I would have liked to see. The standard said 40 to 45, and it was at like 40. So I would have rather it been like 41, 40, somewhere like that, but whatever. But as I looked at the gauge, it said I had fuel pressure. So I said, okay. So I wanted to see what the gauge would do when I turned the key. So I went in there to turn the key, and it kind of barked. The engine kind of, and I said, oh, wait a minute. So I unhooked the thing and, primed it up real good. And I forgot to put the gas cap back onto the fuel tank because I took off the gas cap when I was taking everything off. And I had one of the spark plug wires on the wrong terminal on the ignition module. So once I figured all that out and I hit the thing, it started. I said, heck, yeah, ooh, daddy. And it was working. So I'm watching everything, you know what I mean? Everything is looking, pretty decent. I'm waiting for, check engine lights and things like that. I'm watching. And I notice that I hear like a hissing almost, almost like a hissing sound somewhere. So let it run for a while and I start seeing smoke and check engine light comes on, right? So check engine light, it says, what was it? System to lean on bank 1. So I'm like, uh-oh, what could that be? So then I start having to hunt that down. But what wound up being, when I was tightening everything down, my head bolts and my intake manifold bolts, maybe I got distracted, I don't know. But my intake manifold bolts weren't tight all the way like they should have been. So that was giving me my lean intake code. Also, that takes us to our part. My EGR gasket was leaking from the EGR gasket. Okay, so I figure, oh, okay, just replace the gasket, whatever, no big deal, right? Okay. You take the gasket off with these 2 bolts. There's 2 bolts on there. You take the gasket off. You know what I mean? Nothing too big, right? A little bolt, and take it off, and lift it up. Well, I was taking it off, and guess what? The stud snapped. So look at that. So now this stud has to be drilled out of there, or you got to get another one of these things. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll just, maybe take it to my neighbor or something. Maybe he can drill it out of there or something. No big deal. But I don't want to have to wait for him. So I wound up going to the junkyard and getting another one of these. And he wound up fixing it anyway. So I just got 2 of these now. All right, but I wound up having to go get that. Okay, so that was an issue that I ran into. And I fixed it. Okay. Then when we were changing the oil, because remember with the head gasket, it mixed all the oil and antifreeze and all that stuff. Well, we were changing out the other stuff, and I had taken this oil pressure switch, I think it is. I had taken it out, and I was putting it back in there. Not this one, but I was putting it back in there, and I hit it by accident and broke it. So it was just hanging, like this. As a matter of fact, this is the piece that broke off of the other one. You know what I mean? So it broke. And I said, oh, okay, no big deal, right? Just get another one, right? Screw it in, no big deal, right? Get the new one, screwing it in there. And, I want to get it tight. I'm screwing it in, and I cracked the adapter housing that it screws onto. This is where your oil filter screws on. And your switch screws in right there. So I was screwing it in, and I screwed it too tight, and it cracked the housing right at the top. Right, you can't really see it. It's like a hairline crack. But once you start the engine and there's oil with pressure going through it, you'll see the crack. Because once I started it, oil is now squirting like a geyser out of the engine and leaking all down. So of course that got to be fixed. So trying to look online to find this part, unfortunately, us classic Camaro owners, this part is discontinued. How about that? GM? Thanks. Look at that. But this part is discontinued. So you have to find it either at the junkyard, eBay, knock somebody over the head and take theirs. Something. But I had to, track this down. First, I tried to JB weld it and see if that would fix it. But no. It didn't fix it. So I had to go to the junkyard and get another one and put it on there. So that was that adventure. Then, so got that on there, right? I start getting oxygen sensor engine codes. So, like figure, no big deal. Oxygen sensor, right? Just get another one, screw it in. Well, I guess I wasn't paying attention to whether it was upstream or downstream, because I'm at the counter and the guy says, oh, you want to get an oxygen sensor? Yeah. Let me get the oxygen sensor. All right. Do you want the upstream or the downstream? Doo-doo-doo. You should have been paying attention about which oxygen sensor you needed. Doo-doo-doo. Ah, man, I didn't. All right, well, you know what? Let me get the flip a coin downstream. Guess what? So I had to go back and get the right ones and put them in there. So put them in there, of course. Now they work. Okay. So everything is running pretty good, right? No check engine light, nothing like that. All of a sudden, I come out and I see antifreeze dripping from underneath the car. Where could that be coming from? Well, for anybody that's ever seen these, anybody ever seen these hoses? These are the ones that come up and go into your tensioner, and right there by the alternator, these 2 hoses that go into, they run up the side. Well, mine developed a crack right in that plastic right there. I can't focus, but right in that plastic, it cracked. So it was leaking antifreeze, squirting out of there. Once it gets hot and gets under pressure, it starts squirting out of there, running all down the thing. So it's leaking antifreeze. So I had of course, this part too, hard to find. Had to go to eBay, junkyard, put my mask on, you know, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, finally found the part. And there it is. You know, it was kind of difficult to get off because you had to take this bolt out here, which is a T55, T56, something like that. You know, but you had to get that out, and you had to remove the air compressor to get to that bolt. You know what I mean? So, you know, it was a little job, you know, what you had to do, but got that one. All right. So then, what else? There was so much stuff. That's the trim panel right there for the passenger side. By the trim, I was gonna replace the body control module, and you have to remove that to get to the body control module, which is another headache within itself. But you know, whatever. And I don't know if y'all recognize this, Camaro owners, but this thing be in your way all the time, so I just got rid of it. Hopefully, GM doesn't find out. Sorry, GM. You know what I mean? But that is my adventure so far. You know what I mean? And in the next part, I will show you my progress. All right. But thank you for sticking around, and thank you for reliving the story with me. It's been a blast. See, these are head bolts. See? The old head bolts. You know what I mean? Oh, see, and another thing. These were exhaust manifold bolts that I bought. New exhaust manifold bolts, and they didn't even fit. Like, you start twisting them in there, man, it take, like, you need King Kong to twist them things in there. So I just use the old bolts. You know what I mean? But yeah. But YouTube, thank you so much, man, for checking out the stuff with me. The next episode, we're gonna be back out there looking at the finished product. Peace.